In the tumultuous year of 1964, off the coast of Vietnam, a ripple in the waters of the Gulf of Tonkin would set off a wave felt around the world. The early 1960s were a time of heightened geopolitical tension. The Cold War was in full swing as the world's superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, stood toe-to-toe, each advocating for its own vision of the world. The Southeast Asian region, particularly Vietnam, had become a chessboard where the ideologies of democracy and communism were battling it out. The United States, a staunch defender of democracy, was heavily invested in the region, actively supporting South Vietnam against the Communist North. The U.S. involvement, however, wasn't limited to mere political support. It extended to active military presence, with naval destroyers patrolling the Southeast Asian waters and surveillance missions intercepting North Vietnamese communications. The U.S. destroyers Maddox and Turner Joy were on one such mission, quietly navigating the Gulf of Tonkin. The Maddox, a ship with a storied past, was no stranger to high-stakes operations, having been involved in various covert missions during the Korean War. Its sister ship, the Turner Joy, was equally formidable, boasting state-of-the-art surveillance equipment and a crew trained for the unexpected. Their mission in the Gulf of Tonkin was twofold: to gather intelligence on North Vietnamese military activities and to intercept their communications. This covert operation was part of a broader strategy to contain the spread of communism in Southeast Asia. What the crew of these two destroyers didn't realize, however, was that their mission was about to take an unexpected turn. Their presence in the region was about to trigger a sequence of events that would not only intensify the Cold War tension but also shape the future course of global politics. What seemed to be a regular reconnaissance mission would soon escalate into an incident that would shape global history. The calm sea of the Gulf of Tonkin was shattered by the roar of torpedoes on August 2nd. On this day, the tranquility of the region was broken by the ominous hum of North Vietnamese torpedo boats approaching the U.S. destroyer Maddox. In the midst of the calm sea, tension began to rise. The Maddox, present in the area for reconnaissance and interception of North Vietnamese communications, found itself in the crosshairs. On the horizon, 3 torpedo boats emerged, their intent clear and menacing. To ward off the impending threat, the Maddox fired warning shots. These were not shots of aggression, but of deterrence, a plea for peace in the face of looming conflict. But the North Vietnamese torpedo boats did not heed these warnings. Instead, they opened fire, their torpedoes piercing the quiet air with a deafening roar. The Maddox was forced to call for air support. This was no longer a covert reconnaissance mission, but a battle for survival. The air support arrived and one of the torpedo boats was damaged. Yet the North Vietnamese remained resolute, their resolve undeterred by the mounting odds. In this initial assault, the U.S. believed North Vietnam was targeting its intelligence-gathering mission. This belief, this perceived threat, led to the deployment of another destroyer, the Turner Joy, amplifying the tension in the already volatile waters of the Gulf of Tonkin. The first encounter had ended, but the echoes of the torpedoes and gunfire still lingered. The Maddox and the Turner Joy were now on high alert, their crews on edge, their radars scanning the horizon for any signs of further threats. The calm sea had been replaced by a sea fraught with tension, a sea teetering on the brink of war. The waters of the Gulf had been stirred, but the storm was just beginning. The initial assault had set the stage for a conflict that would reverberate across the world, a conflict that was just beginning to unfold. With the echo of the first attack still lingering, the United States was quick to respond. Perceived as an unprovoked act of aggression, the United States military sprang into action. They viewed the initial attack as a direct threat to their reconnaissance mission in the Gulf of Tonkin, a mission that was crucial in the midst of the mounting tensions between the U.S. and North Vietnam. In response to the threat, the U.S. swiftly deployed the destroyer Turner Joy to reinforce the Maddox. The Turner Joy, a formidable naval vessel, was sent to bolster the American presence in the region, and to prepare for any further possible encounters. This was a clear message to North Vietnam: the United States was not going to back down. With the arrival of the Turner Joy in the Gulf, the U.S. forces were on high alert. The crews of both vessels were primed for action, their senses heightened, their fingers ready on the triggers. They were under orders to protect their mission at all costs, and they were prepared to do just that. This belief that their intelligence-gathering mission was the primary target fueled the resolve of the U.S. forces. They were not there to start a fight, but they would certainly not shy away from one. The presence of the Turner Joy, alongside the Maddox, was a display of strength and determination, a signal to North Vietnam that any further acts of aggression would not be taken lightly. In the midst of the suspense, the United States was not just preparing for defense, they were also laying the groundwork for a possible retaliatory strike, should another attack occur. Every possible scenario was being considered, every potential outcome analyzed. The US was not just reacting to the situation but proactively planning for what might come next. The stage was set for a second encounter, one that would echo far beyond the waters of the Gulf. On August 4th, the Gulf's deceptive calm was once again broken. The tranquil waters of the Gulf of Tonkin were disturbed by the presence of the Maddox and Turner Joy. Their mission, initially a reconnaissance and communication interception, had taken a turn for the worse following the first assault. This time, the tension was palpable. The ships reported tracking unidentified vessels. The radar screens flickered with ominous blips that seemed to dart towards them from the abyss. The crew, their nerves frayed, were on high alert. Each blip, each echo, could be an impending torpedo attack from the North Vietnamese. Without hesitation, the Maddox and Turner Joy fired upon these phantom vessels. The deafening blasts of their guns shattered the silence, reverberating across the Gulf. Each shot was a desperate attempt to dissuade the unseen enemy, to protect their vessels from the perceived threat. In the midst of this chaotic dance of fear and anticipation, a call for air support was made. The radio crackled with urgency as the request echoed through the airwaves. Help was needed, and it was needed quickly. The skies above the Gulf, once clear and serene, were soon filled with the roar of aircraft, adding a new layer of tension to the unfolding drama. As the second incident unfolded, the waters of the Gulf of Tonkin were transformed into a battleground. The presence of the Maddox and Turner Joy, initially a subtle whisper of foreign intervention, had evolved into a full-blown shout of conflict. The incident had escalated, but the truth of the second encounter was still shrouded in uncertainty. The echo of gunfire still hung in the air, the adrenaline still coursed through the veins of the crew, and yet doubt lingered. Was this another unprovoked attack, or was it a false alarm, a dance of shadows on the radar screen? The answer remained as elusive as the phantom vessels they had fired upon. In the aftermath of the second incident, the US would make a decision that would reverberate across the globe. The smoke had barely cleared from the waters of the Gulf of Tonkin when President Lyndon B. Johnson found himself making a choice that would not only shape his presidency, but also the fate of an entire nation. With the perceived threat to American intelligence gathering efforts, the president gave his approval for retaliatory strikes against North Vietnam. It was a decision made in the heat of the moment, a response to the uncertain dangers lurking in the waters of the Gulf. But the strikes were just the beginning. The gears of the American political machine had been set in motion, and they would not be easily stopped. Congress was asked to pass a resolution, a document that would forever be known as the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. With a sense of urgency and a desire to protect American interests abroad, the resolution was passed swiftly. The Gulf of Tonkin Resolution was more than just a piece of paper. It was a key that unlocked the door to a massive escalation of US military involvement in Vietnam. It gave President Johnson the power to take all necessary measures to repel any armed attack against the forces of the United States and to prevent further aggression. With those words, the United States was drawn deeper into the quagmire of Vietnam, a commitment that would span over a decade and claim the lives of countless individuals. In the wake of the Gulf of Tonkin incidents, the world watched as the United States took a step further into the conflict. The ripple effects of those two incidents in the Gulf were felt across the globe. Countries watched, allies and foes alike, as the United States flexed its military muscle, setting the stage for a conflict that would define a generation. The ripple in the Gulf of Tonkin had turned into a global tidal wave, forever changing the course of history. However, as the dust settled, doubts began to surface about the veracity of the second incident. As the echoes of gunfire faded into the past, a veil of uncertainty began to shroud the event that had once seemed so crystal clear. Upon closer examination, the reported contacts and torpedoes fired on that fateful day, August 4th, were called into question. Scientists and military experts began to dissect the circumstances surrounding the incident. Their analysis revealed that weather effects on that particular day could have been a significant factor. The stormy, tempestuous sea had the potential to cause false readings on the sonar, misleading even the most trained and experienced operators. Furthermore, the human element could not be ignored. On board the Maddox and Turner Joy, the sonarmen, eager to prove their worth and perhaps swept up in the tension of the situation, might have overinterpreted the signals they were seeing. The adrenaline rush, the fear, the desire to protect. All of these could have contributed to an overeager response, a trigger pulled too soon. The implications of these revelations were profound. Could it be that the entire incident, which had escalated a conflict and changed the course of history, was based on a misunderstanding? Was it all just a storm in a teacup, a shadow on the radar screen mistaken for an enemy attack? The questions multiplied and the answers seemed elusive. The incident that had once been a clear case of aggression was now a murky pool of uncertainties. The Gulf of Tonkin incident was no longer a simple story of attack and retaliation. It had become a complex tapestry of human error, technological limitations, and perhaps political maneuvering. The Gulf of Tonkin incident, a pivotal moment in world history, was now clouded in controversy and doubt. More than half a century later, the impact of the Gulf of Tonkin incident continues to resonate. It was a catalyst, a spark that ignited the kindling of a conflict that would rage on for more than a decade. The Vietnam War, a war that would claim the lives of over 2 million people, was escalated as a direct result of this incident. The Gulf of Tonkin incident was a moment of chaos and confusion that led to a profound ripple effect across the globe. The world watched as America, a superpower, dove headfirst into a war that would shape the geopolitical landscape for generations to come. The incident didn't just mark a significant escalation in the Vietnam War, it also became a pivotal point in global politics. It set a precedent for the power of a single event to sway public opinion and government actions. It showed how misinformation or misinterpretation could lead to decisions of devastating magnitude. The Gulf of Tonkin incident served as a lesson, a stark reminder of the potential consequences of hasty decisions made under the fog of war. In the years following the incident, it became a reference point in political and military discourse. It prompted discussions about the authority of a president to engage in military action without explicit approval from Congress. It sparked debates on the importance of accurate intelligence and the potentially dire consequences of its misinterpretation. The legacy of the Gulf of Tonkin incident endures, not just in the annals of history, but in the very fabric of international relations and conflict resolution. It serves as a reminder of the importance of clear and accurate communication, the need for thorough analysis, and the dangers of acting on incomplete or inaccurate information. The Gulf of Tonkin incident, a moment of chaos and confusion in the midst of the Cold War, remains a stark reminder of the profound impact of a single event on the course of world history.